Welcome to the Cess Talk Sports BeWise Polysports podcast, where we break down the intersection of sports, race, gender, and politics with no filters and no apologies. I'm your host, Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies, and today we're diving into the relentless social media campaign against one of the most polarizing and unapologetic figures in women's basketball, Angel Reese. In this episode, we'll explore how Reese went from a celebrated NCAA champion to a lightning rod for criticism in the WNBA. Is it just about basketball, or is there a deeper conversation about race, power, and who gets to be confident in women's sports? Let's get into it. Welcome my fabulous co-host, Political Lil. Lil, what's up?
What's going on there, Cess? This is one that needs to be talked about.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Angel Reese. Because whether you love her or hate her, you will talk about her. And that right there is power, right, Lil? Reese made
Power,
waves
power.
at LSU, leading her team to an NCAA championship in 2023. But it wasn't just her stats that turned the heads. It was the way she carried herself. She was dominant on the court, averaging a double-double, racking up awards, and setting records. But beyond the numbers, she became a cultural force, embracing black womanhood in all its fullness, rocking her lashes, edges laid, standing tall in her confidence, and making sure the world knew she was here to stay. Then came her WNBA rookie season, and the spotlight only got brighter. She took her talent to the Chicago sky, immediately making an impact despite the usual growing pains of transitioning to the pros. She's one of the top rookies, leading in rebounds, making clutch plays, breaking records, and proving she belonged. But while she was adjusting to the league, social media was adjusting to her presence. And let's just say, not everybody was happy about it.
If there's a moment that set the internet on fire, it was the taunt, the now infamous "You can't see me, Jesse." Let's rewind. NCAA championship game, LSU versus Iowa. Angel Reese at the top of her game hits Caitlin Clark with the same John Cena inspired hand wave that Clark had used early in the tournament. It was basketball. It was competitive. It was fire. But instead of being celebrated like Clark was, Reese was dragged. She was called classless, disrespectful, too cocky. The narrative wasn't just criticism, it was a full blown character assassination. And here's the thing, this wasn't just about sportsmanship, this was about race. Clark's taunt was seen as a competitive spirit. Reese was painted as aggressive. And that's a theme we've seen over and over again when it comes to black women in sport. But the backlash didn't stop there. Fast forward to her WNBA rookie season, and social media still hasn't let up. Whether it's her playing style, her confidence, or just the way she exists, there's a relentless campaign to discredit her. Why? Because Angel Reese challenges the image of what some people think basketball should look like. And we're going to break that down for you in the next segment.
Yeah, we'll get into the persistence of the criticism Angel Reese has faced in her rookie season and how this isn't just about her. It's about the power structures in women's sports, who gets to be celebrated. Y'all, let's get locked in. If you're just tuning in, we've been unpacking the relentless social media campaign against Angel Reese, from a rise in the NCAA to the persistent criticism she's faced in the WNBA. But now we need to take a step back and look at the why. Because this ain't just about a basketball player being too confident. This is about power, race, and control. To really understand the backlash against Angel Reese, we have to talk about white rage, a term coined by historian and scholar Carol Anderson. White rage isn't about the loud, violent expressions of racism, it's about the more subtle, systemic pushback whenever black people achieve too much, too fast. It's the deliberate response to black success as a way to maintain control. And when we apply that lens to women's basketball, the picture becomes very clear. Let's break it down. Whenever black people make undeniable progress in spaces that weren't built for us, the system finds a way to strike back. We've seen it throughout history. Reconstruction brought black political power. Then came the black codes in the South, followed by Jim Crow. The civil rights movement gained momentum. Then came the drug war, mass incarceration, and voter suppression. And in sports, the same pattern plays out. Angel Reese is the latest example. She isn't just winning, she's winning loudly. She's unbothered, unfiltered, and unapologetic. She embraces her blackness, her confidence, her cultural influence, and she doesn't shrink herself for anyone's comfort. That disrupts the traditional image of women's basketball, an image that for decades was centered around white athletes as the face of the game. And what happens when that image is challenged? White rage kicks in. That's why the backlash against Reese isn't just about her skill, it's about what she represents. The pushback isn't just about basketball, it's about policing the boundaries of who gets to be dominant, who gets to be the face of women's sports, and who gets to be embraced by the media and the fans.
Women's basketball has become a battleground for racial progress. Black women are no longer just participants in the game. We're defining it. And that threatens the historical power structures that have long dictated who gets to be a star, who gets the endorsements, who gets the respect. Look at the rise of black women in sports. From the NCAA to the WNBA, we're seeing more black athletes at the forefront. Angel Reese, Aja Wilson, Dawn Stanley, Flau'jae Johnson. And with the rise comes resistance. It's no coincidence that as more black women dominate the game, we see intensified scrutiny, coded languages about attitudes, and calls for these athletes to be more humble. Humble? No. What they really mean is less visible and less powerful. Angel Reese embodies this shift. She's young, successful, and she knows her work. She's getting brand deals, she's pushing culture, and she's making sure her presence is felt. And that right there is why she's a target. Because a confident black woman in a space traditionally controlled by white athletes represents change, and change makes people uncomfortable.
So let's be clear, this backlash ain't just about a basketball player talking trash. It's about the fight over power, visibility, and who gets to define the future of women's sports. Angel Reese isn't the first black woman to face this level of pushback, and she won't be the last. But what she's doing, it matters. She's forcing a conversation that's been a long time coming. We'll dive into how social media amplifies this backlash and how digital platforms have become a battleground for racial narratives in women's sports. Stay locked in. This is the Cess Talk Sports BeWise Polysports podcast. We've talked about the role of white rage in the backlash against Angel Reese, how her success, confidence, and cultural influence disrupt the status quo in women's basketball. But now we need to go deeper. We need to talk about the foundation of all of this, the system of white supremacy and the manufactured belief in black inferiority. To break this down, we turn to Tom Burrell's book, Brainwashed, challenging the myth of black inferiority. If you haven't read it, put it on your list. Burrell lays out how, for centuries, media, culture, and public narratives have worked together to reinforce the idea that black people are lesser, less intelligent, less capable, less deserving of power. And when someone like Angel Reese steps onto the scene, dominating in a space where black women have historically been sidelined, that system goes into overdrive to put her back in her place. Burrell explains how black inferiority is not an accident. It's a design. It's been embedded in American society since the days of slavery, reinforced through racist stereotypes, and upheld by a media system that dictates how black people, especially black women, should be seen and accepted. Think about how black women in sports are portrayed. If they're dominant, they're aggressive. If they're confident, they have an attitude problem. If they speak up, they're ungrateful. It's the same script over and over again. Angel Reese isn't just a victim of this pattern, she's actively resisting it. She refuses to make herself small, to dim her personality, or to conform to the respectability politics that demand black women be silent and grateful for an opportunity that they get. And that's the resistance. It triggers everything the system is built to suppress. Because the moment a black woman operates outside the box America has assigned to her, the system starts working to put her back in line. And that brings us to the Scorched Earth campaign against Angel Reese. One second.
Let's call it what it is. Angel Reese has been the target of a full blown media and social media takedown. This isn't just a few angry fans mad about a basketball game. This is a coordinated effort to destroy her image, discredit her talent, and strip her of her influence she's worked for. And this is exactly how white supremacy operates. It weaponizes backlash to control who gets to rise and who gets torn down. Look at how the narrative around Angel Reese has been shaped. Sport media personalities questioning her sportsmanship. Social media trolls flooding her mentions with racist insults. Headlines dissecting every move she makes while letting her white counterpart slide. It's all intentional. The goal is to make her an outsider, to make her question herself, to make brands hesitant to work with her, and ultimately to make other black women in the sport think twice before following in her footsteps. And let's talk about the political climate we're in, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. We're in an era where the rise of mega ideology has pushed white grievances politics into overdrive. We've got political figures openly embracing the idea that white America is losing ground. And every time a confident, successful black woman takes up space, that insecurity flares up. Angel Reese has become a symbol in this battle, whether she asks for it or not. She represents a new generation of black women who refuse to apologize for their greatness. And that in a country where whiteness has always been positioned as the standard makes her a direct threat.
This isn't just about basketball. This is about the way America treats black excellence. This is about how white supremacy moves to destroy anything that challenges the myth of black inferiority. And it's about the message that's being sent, not just to Angel Reese, but to every black woman watching. The message is clear: be grateful, be humble, don't be too loud, don't be too confident. But here's the thing: they don't get to dictate that anymore. Angel Reese is part of a new era where black women are defining their own narratives. And if the system doesn't like it, that's too damn bad. When we come back, we're getting into social media's role in all of this. The digital battleground where Angel Reese is being targeted and how online platforms are fueling the backlash. We've laid out the foundation, how Angel Reese's rise to stardom has triggered white right rage, how the media plays a central role in reinforcing the myth of black inferiority, and how a scorched earth campaign is being waged against her. But where is this war being fought the hardest? Online. Social media is the modern day battlefield, and Angel Reese is in the crossfire. Let's start with the obvious. Social media is both a blessing and a curse for athletes, especially black women in sports. On one hand, it allows them to build their brand, connect directly with fans, and bypass traditional media gatekeepers. But on the other hand, it's the primary tool used to attack, undermine, and try to humble them when they refuse to conform.
For Angel Reese, social media has been relentless. Ever since she hit the You Can't See Me celebration in the NCAA championship, her name has been in the trending topic for all the wrong reasons. The moment she showed confidence, the floodgates opened. Twitter threads, Instagram comments, TikTok videos dissected her every move. But this isn't organic criticism. This is a coordinated effort to vilify her. So let's break it down. How does social media fuel this backlash? It's not just about individual trolls. It's about the way these platforms amplify negativity when it's directed at a black woman. You ever notice how negative posts about Angel Reese gets way more engagements than positive ones? That's by design. Platforms like Twitter X, Instagram, and TikTok thrive on outrage. The more people argue, the more clicks, shares, and comments a post gets, and the algorithm pushes it even further. And guess what? That means racist, misogynist attacks on Angel Reese get prime placement in people's feeds. It's not just sports fans talking. It's coordinated bot accounts pushing the same narrative over and over again. And let's not ignore the role of right wing media outlets. The same people who push white grievances politics are the ones taking shots at Angel Reese, making her a cultural war target, just like they did with Colin Kaepernick, Megan Rapinoe, and Shakari Richards. They're not mad at the game, they're mad at who's winning. Here's where it gets real clear. Angel Reese is getting crucified for the same thing white athletes do without issue. Take Caitlin Clark. She hit the same You Can't See Me celebration. It was competitive fire. Angel Reese does it. It's classic. Sabrina Ionescu trash talking. She's feisty. Angel Reese does it. She's ghetto. The goalposts are constantly shifting, and social media makes sure that double standard is enforced every single day.
By now, we've seen the pattern play out. Angel Reese dominates on the court. She embraces her identity unapologetically, and immediately here comes the backlash. The media attacks, the social media smears, the racist narratives. But let's dig deeper. Who's really behind this? Is this just a few upset fans, or is there something much bigger at play? Let's break down how conservative media, social media algorithms, and political agendas are fueling the campaign against Angel Reese. First, let's talk about the role of right wing media. Because it's no coincidence that Angel Reese has been a consistent target for conservative outlets like Fox News, Outkick, and other platforms that thrive on cultural war outrage. This isn't just about sports, it's about politics, race, and power. Anytime a black athlete, especially a black woman, steps outside the box they've been placed in, they become a target. Angel Reese represents a new generation of athletes who refuse to be humble, grateful, or silent. And that is a direct challenge to the conservative sports agenda, which wants to push an image of women's basketball that is respectable, non threatening, and let's be real, whiter. Remember when Caitlin Clark did the You Can't See Me celebration? Conservative media barely covered it. And when they did, it was competitive fire. But when Angel Reese did it, the headlines were filled with words like classless, unsportsmanlike, and bad for the game. The double standard is so blatant, but it's not about the gesture itself, it's about who is doing it. This is the same playbook we've seen before. Conservative media isn't mad at Angel Reese because of basketball. They're mad because she represents the shift in power happening in sports. They're mad because black athletes are controlling their own narratives, making their own money, and refusing to conform to the traditional, respectable image that makes white America comfortable. And let's be clear, this is part of a broader conservative agenda that wants to roll back racial progress in all aspects of life. Women's basketball is just another battleground in a larger fight over who gets to take up space in America.
Now let's talk about social media because if you've been paying attention, you know the attacks on Reese aren't organic. These aren't just random trolls in comment sections. This is a coordinated effort to discredit, harass, and silence her. And platforms like Twitter, X, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, they're all fueling it. If you look at who's behind these attacks, you'll see a familiar trend. Right wing influencers, MAGA affiliate accounts, and a social media network that attacks black athletes, black politicians, and black activists. This is all part of the same machine. These groups use coordinated efforts, hashtags, dog whistles, and viral smear campaigns to flood social media with negative content about Angel Reese. It's not just criticism, it's an organized attempt to turn the public perception against her. The way these social media platforms work, negativity spreads faster than positivity. The algorithm prioritizes controversy. So if someone posts a racist or misogynist take about Angel Reese, that tweet is going to get more engagement than one celebrating her success. The result, a manufactured reality where it looks like everyone hates her, when in reality it's just a loud, well organized minority. We've seen this before. Colin Kaepernick, Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka. The moment a black athlete refuses to stay in their lane, the algorithms reward the backlash. And that's exactly what's happening with Angel Reese.
So the real question is Angel Reese actually a threat to women's basketball, or is she just a convenient scapegoat for larger anxieties about race, culture, and power? Every generation has its villain, a black athlete who is framed as too much for their sport. Angel Reese is just the latest target. But what she's actually doing isn't radical. It's just that mainstream sports culture isn't used to black women having this level of power. The backlash against her isn't because of her actions, it's because of what she represents, a shift in the sports power dynamics. At the core of this backlash is fear. Fear that black women athletes are no longer dependent on the system to succeed. Fear that they're making their own money, controlling their own brands, and building generational wealth outside of the traditional structures. Angel Reese isn't just a player, she's a symbol of the future. A future where black athletes don't need approval from the media, don't need the WNBA low salaries, and don't need to fit in to succeed. And that's why she's a threat to the establishment. At the end of the day, this isn't about Angel Reese. It's about who controls the future of women's basketball. It's about whether black athletes will be allowed to take up space without constant scrutiny. It's about whether social media platforms will keep allowing these racist smear campaigns to thrive. And it's about whether the sports world is ready to embrace a future where black women athletes are at the center, not as villains, not as side characters, but as the undeniable stars they are. So the question is, are we going to let this backlash define the narrative, or are we going to push back just as hard? Because if history has shown us anything, it's that black athletes always rise above the noise, and Angel Reese is just getting started. Up next, we're talking about the bigger picture, how this fight over Angel Reese is actually about the future of women's basketball, the media's role in shaping public perception, and the growing financial power of black athletes.
Imagine waking up every day to see your name trending because people are debating whether you deserve the success you've earned. That's the reality for Angel Reese. And it's not just about her, it's about what this tells other black women in the sport. It tells them that no matter how hard you work, no matter how good they are. The moment you step out of line, they'll be punished for it. This this isn't criticism, it's policing. It's an attempt to break her down, to make her shrink, to force her into the mold of what acceptable for the black woman in sport. But here's the thing: Angel Reese isn't backing down. She's leaning into it. She's standing 10 toes down, embracing the villain role they tried to force upon her and turning it into power. And that's why they really can't stand her. So what do we do? How do we push back against this social media warfare? First, we call it out every time. We don't let negative narratives go unchecked. We challenge the hypocrisy. We uplift our own. And we don't let a smear campaign win. Second, we support Angel Reese and black women in sports with our engagement, like share, boost their content. If the algorithm's going to reward engagement, let's make sure we're working in favor of it.
And finally, we remember that this fight is bigger than basketball. This is about power, control, and who gets to exist in spaces without being torn down. Angel Reese is on the front lines, but she's not alone. And if history tells us anything, it's that black women always find a way to win. When we come back, we're breaking down what's next for Angel Reese, how she's navigating this firestorm, securing brand deals, and solidifying her legacy despite the hate. This is the BeWise Polysports Cess Talk Sports podcast. All right, we've broken down the backlash, the media machine, and the digital warfare aimed at Angel Reese. But now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because this isn't just about one player, it's about the power struggle happening in women's sports and beyond. Angel Reese is at the center of a much larger cultural shift, and that's exactly why she's a problem for those who want to keep things the way they've always been. Let's get straight to it. Women's basketball is changing, whether traditional power brokers like it or not. And Angel Reese, she's a walking, talking, trash talking symbol of that change. But here's the question: is her rise a threat to the agenda to reframe the sport? For years, women's basketball has struggled for mainstream acceptance. And when the WNBA was first marketed, it was sold as a family friendly alternative to the NBA. Less flashy, less confrontational, and certainly less black, even though black women have always been the foundation of the league. The faces that get the biggest media push have often been white, clean cut, and non threatening to the mainstream audience. Now enter Angel Reese, full of swagger, unapologetically black, leaning into hip hop culture, and embracing the very things that have historically been deemed unmarketable in women's basketball. And suddenly, she's the one selling jerseys, securing brand deals, and shifting the cultural center of gravity in the sport. That disrupts the old game plan. Let's be real. Part of the reason the media and the industry are so invested in certain white players is because they represent the ideal image of women's basketball for a white audience. Angel Reese doesn't fit that mold, and that's why her rise is so polarizing.
But let's not stop at basketball. What we're witnessing is a much bigger shift in race, gender, and economic power. Angel Reese's dominance isn't just about wins or stats. It's about what she represents. Historically, the image of the great woman basketball player has been centered on white females. They've been positioned as the face of the sport, the ones who are praised for being skilled, hardworking, and fundamentally sound. While black players are often described as athletic or physical, as if their success isn't rooted in skill. Angel Reese, with her intelligence, strategic play, and vocal leadership, challenges the entire framework. She refuses to be put in a box, and that's why she's being met with so much resistance. And here's the other piece: this isn't just about sports. The rise of NIL, the name, image, and likeness deals, has changed the game entirely, giving players more control over their brand and money. And who's been leading that charge? Black athletes. Angel Reese, Flaw Johnson, Juju Watkins. These women aren't just playing basketball, they're securing $1 million endorsement deals, building businesses, and shifting power away from the traditional gatekeepers. That is a direct challenge to the system that has historically kept black athletes financially dependent.
The backlash against Angel Reese is part of a broader fear that white dominated spaces in women's sports, media, and endorsement markets are being eroded. Because the truth is, the demographics of who is watching, engaging, and investing in women's basketball are changing. More black fans, more diverse audiences, more corporate dollars flowing into the hands of black women athletes. And as the shift happens, the resistance gets stronger. That's why we're seeing these debates over sportsmanship, class, and marketability. It's about control. Angel Reese isn't just a basketball player, she's a cultural force. And whether people love her or hate her, they can't ignore her. She's forcing a conversation that goes beyond the court about race, gender, power, and who gets to define the future of women's sports. And for all the people hoping she'll tone it down, shrink herself, or fall in line, she's making one thing clear. That's not happening. When we come back, we're getting into the real impact. How this cultural battle isn't just about Angel Reese, but about the future of women's basketball, media representation, and the economic power of black athletes.
All right, we've laid it all out. Angel Reese is at the center of a cultural battle. And let's be clear, this is about way more than just her. What's happening to Angel Reese is happening because women's basketball itself is at a crossroads. The old guard wants to hold on to their power, while a new wave of black women athletes are coming in, rewriting rules and refusing to play by an outdated script. So let's get into it. How is this fight shaping the future of women's basketball, media representation, and financial power of black athletes?
We've never seen women's basketball in a moment quite like this. The sport is growing record-breaking viewership, bigger endorsement deals, and new investment in the WNBA. But let's be honest, who's driving that growth? Black women. The faces of this new era, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Juju Watkins, Asia Wilson, Flau'jae Johnson, Aaliyah Boston, this generation is pushing women's basketball into the mainstream. But even as the sport rises, the battle for who gets the credit and who gets the biggest piece of the pie is getting more intense. We need to ask the hard questions. Who is being positioned as the future of the sport? Who gets the primetime coverage? Who gets the biggest endorsements? Because we know how this works. Black athletes have always been the talent, but the profits have historically gone elsewhere. And in this new era, we're seeing the same playbook. The media will tell you that women's basketball is more popular than ever. But who are they giving the biggest push? It's not Angel Reese, it's not Asia Wilson, and it's not the other black women dominating the game. There's still a very deliberate effort to frame white players as the face of the sport, even when the numbers don't reflect that reality. For years, we were told that black women weren't marketable enough to be the faces of women's sports. Too loud, too flashy, too aggressive. But here's the thing, black women athletes are proving that's a lie. Angel Reese is selling out jerseys. Flau'jae Johnson is getting endorsement deals from every major brand. Asia Wilson is dominating both on and off the court. And Coco Golf and tennis made $25 million in product endorsements last year. The real issue isn't marketability, it's control. It's about who gets to detect the image of women's basketball. And for the first time, black women are pushing back and saying, we'll do it our way.
And that brings us to the media. Because let's be real, none of this backlash happens in a vacuum. The way media covers these athletes shape how the public sees them. And for decades, black women in sports have been fighting against bias, racist, and misogynist narratives. Let's compare the coverage. Angel Reese taunts an opponent, and she's called classless and unsportsmanlike. The white player does the same thing. It's competitive fire and passion for the game. Aja Wilson wins MVP, and she barely gets a fraction of the coverage that a less dominant white player would receive for the same triple double. The pattern is obvious. Black women's success is either being downplayed, villainized, while white athletes are uplifted as the gold standard. That's not an accident. That's how the system works. Let's also talk about who controls the media narrative. The sports media industry is overwhelmingly white, and they decide what stories get told, who voices are amplified, and whose are ignored. That's why we see an oversaturation of certain players, while others like Angel Reese, Aja Wilson, and even Don Stanley get the difficult or controversial label. These are games that are being played behind the scenes to keep black women in the sport from being fully embraced.
But here's the real game changer. The financial power of the black athletes is growing. And that's why the backlash is getting stronger. Because the more control black athletes have over their own money, the less they can be controlled by these outdated power structures. The NIL era has shifted the landscape in a way that no one saw coming. College athletes, especially black women, can now build their own brands before they even go pro. Angel Reese is making more money than most WNBA players before she even steps on a professional court. Flau'jae Johnson isn't just a basketball player, she's a businesswoman, a rapper, and a media personality. Juju Watkins' star is so bright with NIL endorsements that she is changing the landscape by having community equity set aside in all her endorsements. The power is shifting, and the old guard doesn't like it. And let's not forget, WNBA players are pushing for more control over their own futures. Look at Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart creating Unrivaled, a player-owned league. They see the writing on the wall. Women's basketball is growing, but they don't want to be at the mercy of an outdated system. Players are realizing that they are the product, and they don't need middlemen to dictate their value. And corporate sponsors are catching on. Brands are investing in black women athletes like never before, and it's forcing the industry to change. Nike, Gatorade, Puma, and others are recognizing that the culture is black, and that's where the money is. But here's the key. Black athletes have to keep pushing to own their image, their platforms, and their business ventures so they don't just become another exploited product.
Facts. At the end of the day, Angel Reese is just one chapter in a much bigger story. This is about who controls women's basketball, who profits from it, and who gets to define its future. Black women are no longer asking for permission to be the face of the game. They're taking that spot. And as we move forward, the question is, will the industry embrace the shift, or will they keep trying to fight it? Because let's be real, this backlash isn't about basketball. It's about power. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when black athletes start taking up too much space, the system will always try to push back. The question is, are we ready to push harder? Next up, we're going to break down the future of women's basketball, who's leading the charge, where the money is flowing, and what needs to happen for this momentum to turn into lasting change. Stay locked in.
We've broken down where the backlash against Angel Reese is coming from. We talked about the media's role, the political agendas at play, and how social media fuels these attacks. But now it's time for the real question. What do we do about it? How do we push back against the negativity and make sure this moment becomes a turning point, not just for Angel Reese, but for all black women in sports? One thing is clear. Angel Reese cannot fight this battle alone. The entire basketball community needs to step up, and we've already seen some glimpses of that solidarity. But it has to be stronger, louder, and more intentional. We need more players, coaches, and teams to take a stand, not just in private conversations, but in public. We've seen how voices like Dawn Staley, Asia Wilson, and even players like Caitlin Clark have addressed the disparities in how black women are treated in the game. But more needs to be done. Imagine what happens when entire teams, entire leagues stand behind Angel Reese and say, we're not going to allow this to keep happening. That kind of unity sends a message that these smear campaigns won't work anymore. Fans play a massive role in shaping the narrative. It's easy to think that what's happening in the media is out of our hands, but the reality is when fans push back, sponsors listen. When fans demand fair coverage, networks listen. If you're a fan of women's basketball, now's the time to make your voice heard. Call out the bias when you see it. Use your platforms, whether it's social media, blogs, or just conversations with other fans, to challenge the double standards. The culture won't change if we let the hate go unchallenged.
One of the biggest issues in sports coverage is the lack of black voices shaping the narrative. If we want real change, we need more black journalists, commentators, and analysts in the space. We need platforms like Girl Talk Sports TV and the Black Sports Women to be amplified. We need sports independent media that tells our stories correctly. The mainstream sports media isn't going to change on its own. But if we support the people already doing the work, we can create alternative spaces where black athletes are covered with respect, nuance, and accuracy. Beyond just calling out bias, we need a real strategy to shift the conversation to protect black athletes from these coordinated attacks. A lot of casual fans don't realize that this isn't just about Angel Reese. It's about a historical pattern. They don't know about what Serena Williams faced. They don't know how the media mistreated Cheryl Swoop, Lisa Leslie, and even Cheryl Miller back in the day. We need to make it clear that what's happening to Angel Reese isn't new. It's just the latest version of an old playbook. And the more people understand it, the harder it is for these smear campaigns to succeed.
When these attacks happen, the worst thing we can do is let them isolate the athlete. That's what they want, to break their confidence, to make them feel alone. So how do we counter that? We build coalitions of support. We need athletes unions, advocacy groups, and even informal networks to step in when players are targeted. Groups like the WNBPA, the Women's National Basketball Players Association, And even collectives of former players should be vocal in defending athletes like Angel Reese, because when they see a wall of support, it makes it much harder for these attacks to stick. So what's the end game? How do we make sure Angel Reese doesn't just survive this, but actually uses this moment to spark something bigger? Here's what's next. Angel Reese already has a massive following, and she's using it to speak her truth. But imagine if she takes it further. If she starts advocating for policy changes in women's sports. If she builds media projects to highlight black athletes. If she becomes not just a basketball star, but a cultural force. She's already on that path. She's got major sponsorship deals. She's a major voice in the game, and she has influence beyond basketball. She's in a position to shape the next era of women's sports, and that's why they fear her.
At the end of the day, it's not just about defending Angel Reese. It's about making sure that the next generation of black athletes don't have to go through this. That means pushing for systemic change, holding sports media accountable for biased coverage, fighting for better pay and financial independence for women basketball players so they aren't relying on systems that don't serve them. Making sure NIL opportunities remain accessible to black athletes who have historically been denied economic power in sport. This backlash was never really about Angel Reese. It's about power. It's about who gets to define women's basketball. It's about whether black women can take up space without being torn down. But there's the thing, they can't stop what's already happening. The sport is changing, the power is shifting. And if we stay loud, stay united, and keep pushing back against the hate, we can make sure this moment turns into a movement. Angel Reese isn't just enduring this, she's leading the way forward. The only question is, are we going to follow her lead? As we wrap up this episode, let's take a step back. What does Angel Reese really represent? Why why has she become such a polarizing figure? Why is her journey bigger than basketball? Let's break it down.
Angel Reese isn't just an elite athlete, she's a game changer. She's redefining what it means to be a star in women's basketball, and she's doing it on her own terms. She's loud, confident, unapologetic, and most importantly, successful. And that success is forcing conversations that a lot of people don't want to have. Reese has shattered records, drawn millions of viewers to the sport, and helped redefine the marketability of women's college basketball. Her dominance on the court, paired with her ability to connect with fans, is reshaping how women's sports are consumed. She's part of a generation of black women who are elevating the game, and that's why the pushback is so intense. They're not just playing the game, they're changing it. Angel Reese is more than an athlete, she's a cultural figure. Her presence challenges outdated expectations of how black women in sports should behave. She's bringing swag, confidence, and a sense of ownership over her narrative. She's showing young black girls that they don't have to shrink themselves to fit into a system that was never built for them. Yes, this is political. The way Angel Reese is treated isn't just about basketball, it's about race, gender, and power. It's about who is allowed to succeed without being torn down. It's about how black women in America are policed for their confidence, their expressions, their very existence in spaces that weren't made for them. Her battle isn't just hers, it's a reflection of a larger struggle for equity in sports and beyond.
If Angel Reese wins, it's not just a victory for her. It's a victory for every black woman who has been told she's too much. It's a win for every athlete who has had a negative, racist double standard. And it's a message that black women will not be erased, silenced, or diminished in sports or anywhere else. This isn't just about trash talk. It's about who gets to take up space, who gets to profit from the game, who gets to be celebrated versus who gets to be villainized. If we let the media and these coordinated attacks define Angel Reese's legacy, we set a dangerous precedent. It means any black woman who stands in her power can be taken down the same way.
So what can we do? How do we make sure Angel Reese's legacy isn't written by those who want to see her fail? Here's a call to action. Support her career, buy her merch, boost her highlights, engage with the media outlets that cover her fairly. She's already a star. Let's make sure that star keeps rising. Call out the bias when you see it. Push back against the narratives that try to make her seem too aggressive or undeserving. Hold the media accountable for the way they cover black women in sports. Angel Reese isn't alone. There are so many black women in basketball at the college and pro levels who face the same battles. Support them too. Watch their games, follow their journeys, and make sure their stories are told accurately. At the end of the day, Angel Reese represents something bigger than basketball. She represents the fight for respect, equity, and the right for black women to exist in sports without compromise. And that's a battle worth fighting. So let's lift her up. Let's celebrate her. And most importantly, let's make sure that when history looks back on Angel Reese, it sees her for what she truly is: a pioneer, a leader, and a champion. Thank you all for tuning in today and for being part of this critical conversation. Together, we can make a difference. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Share your insights with us on social media, leave a comment, or send us feedback. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and share this episode with your friends, family, and community. Let's keep the conversation going on social media. Amplify the conversation around equity and leadership in sports, and tell us what were your takeaways. What inspired you? Tag us and let us know. And before we sign off, remember, representation matters. Stay tuned for more Cess Talk Sports, BeWise, Polysports podcast episodes. Up next, we are going to continue highlighting black women who are disrupting the power structure. And last but not least, remember, sports are never just about the game. It's about the stories we tell and the changes we create. It's up to everyone within the sound of my voice to be a change agent. Until next time, stay wise and stay engaged. This is your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendency Cess and Political Lil. Until next time, stay tuned. Talk soon. We out.